Welcome everyone in the room and online. I'm Graham Shipley, an ancient historian. I don't mean this to be a very formal introduction, but I thought that some people may not be aware of all Susan's background and achievements. Susan Deacy is an honorary visiting fellow in the School of Archaeology and Ancient History at Leicester, as well as an honorary professor at Bristol University. Until the much regretted termination of classical degrees by the University of Roehampton in 2022, she was a full professor of classics there. This year she became editor of the Bulletin of the Institute of Classical Studies from London, building on her long and innovative work as editor of the Bulletin of the Council of University Classical Departments, CUCD. She is known for a wide range of research on Greek social and cultural history, particularly for her edited books on rape in antiquity, the 1997 original and a 2023 follow-up, and other work on violence and gender, and a series of studies on Greek goddesses, which she edits, and in the last decade and more, a series of major studies on equality, diversity and inclusion in the curriculum, as well as on the relationship between classical mythology and the teaching of neurodivergent pupils at school and university. Her achievements were recognised recently with her election as Fellow of the Society of Antiquaries in London. Her teaching has always been renowned, and she holds the rare distinction, at least among people I know, of being Principal Fellow of the Higher Education Academy. And she's the only holder of that title in the School of Archaeology and Ancient History, as far as I know. Her major research undertaking in recent years was as the PI, Principal Investigator for Roehampton, have I got that right? Yes. Until 2022, for the European-funded project Our Mythical Childhood, based in Warsaw, which has already produced an indispensable series of publications. In a moment, I shall invite Susan to talk to us on her chosen theme, At Every Crossroads, Hercules and Medusa through a Neurodivergent Prism, which acknowledges her, if I may put it so, liminal situation between an outgoing and incoming research focus. We can hardly wait to hear what she has to say. But we cannot let this moment go by without noting that only 2 days ago, her new monograph coming out of the Our Mythical Childhood project and entitled What Would Hercules Do? Lessons for Autistic Children Using Classical Myth has appeared online in open access download. And I took the liberty of extracting some pages from the PDF to make it into a little leaflet that I could pass round. Let me show this to the camera as well. This is the inside title page of the volume, beautifully printed in Warsaw, with the copyright page and the table of contents. And if anyone online would like a copy of this little leaflet, I'm sure it'll be all right to send it round. Let me pass this round the table as well. So we haven't got the physical book to celebrate, but this is the next best that I can do.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
We're certainly very pleased to be Susan's first audience since the appearance of that book. And in token of this event, I have a little something as well for Susan to take away to celebrate with in this romantic bag. A bag.
Oh, a bag.
So,
I think it's got a bottle in it. Oh my god. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
I look forward to your talk.
Oh, thank you.
And interaction as well.
Yes. Oh, I did actually say just now I rubbish at hybrid things. I think they're really important for reasons I'll say why. I just think I'm rubbish at them. Because I like to be kind of all over the place, you know, and if it's just online, if it's just in person, I can deal with that. But I get a bit, you know, overwhelmed, so sorry. There we go, I'll do my best. But at least I'm able to sit down, which is really civilized. I'll have to stand up to change the slides over, but you know, so be it. Okay, so let me say first that thank you for that introduction, and it means a lot to me that this book is out, and it means a lot to me that, you know, the first time I'm like, you know, presenting it, now it's an object, is here. this means a lot to me. I don't have, this is the closest I have to a physical copy of the book, so I still feel like I'm in limbo, because it's on its way somewhere between Warsaw and Guildford, where I live right now. So maybe next time I'll actually bring, you know, an actual copy. But it is available freely online, and that's something I'm, you know, just really delighted about. So I'm honoured to be here. Now, this is my second visit here as an honorary visiting fellow, and it's also my second visit to talk about a key aspect of my practice and my research. They're kind of the same thing for me, which is about autism and classical myths. Now, last year I came in September, so September 2022, and my focus then was Herculean, right? There's going to be a Herculean focus today as well. But yeah, I'm at the crossroads, right? I haven't done with Hercules, right? Hercules is gonna stay with me, and for reasons I hope to convey today. But I'm also at the cusp of beginning a new project, focusing on, well, like, maybe it'll be called, you know, what would Medusa do? Yeah, maybe. Okay, maybe I've got the title sorted. So when I came last September, my focus was very Herculean. I kind of finished the book, but I was as my relationship with autism and neurodiversity was ever changing. So I kept updating the introduction and then the whole book, and the colleagues in Warsaw, some of whom are here online, were extremely supportive the whole time. So I was very much in the final stages of the book when I came last year. And my visit, I think, you know, appropriate to the neurodiverse ethos of everything I do, was that we did everything in a sort of non-conventional way that seemed to work quite well for everyone who came, from all the feedback I've had. So we started in the morning with a informal kind of meet and greet in a room like this, where a range of people from across the university, and also a range of people in terms of where they were along their academic journeys, came along. There was one person, for example, who was about to start a distance learning degree here. There was a professor from, I think, computer sciences here, for example. So we started with a meet and greet. Then we had those of us who, you know, had time and wanted to, went over, I think, to a library cafe for a nice informal lunch. Then outside a lecture room, elsewhere on campus, there was tea and cake. And then there was a more formal hybrid, like this, paper that I was given. And so today I'm only doing the last of those, right? The sort of more formal seminar type paper. But like that last visit, it's going to be less formal than, you know, academic papers often are. It's still an academic paper, it's just less formal than they often are. Hello.
I'm sorry to disturb you, but are there any students here? 1, 2,
2, 3.
Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah, so it's going to be less sort of formal than traditional academic papers are, as I think suits the topic, which is me talking about my experiential applications of classical myths. And this is particularly the case, as one of the things that came out of the session last year was, can we please do more things like this? Right? Can we please do more things like this? Can we have more things like this? Right? And more, you know, sort of things where, you know, it's not just, you know, person sitting at the front talking. And so this is a, you know, it's in a formal lecture room, but okay, there is also a handout. Okay, that's pretty traditional, I suppose. But as well as the handout, and I hope you online people have been able to like print it out. You know, it's not compulsory. It's completely opt-in. But and I briefed the online people as well. There are also colouring things, right? There are colouring things. So I don't know if Graham or someone could just like circulate these and make sure everyone's got a handout. There's also you can cut around it. Okay, it's going to be a mask. So I brought some scissors along. Right, so this is all completely opt-in. But if you want to have a go, go for it. So yeah, so the way we did it last year, you know, people did say things like that. You know, that worked really well, including Emma Astra, who yes, Emma Aldwinkle, who is here but online. Oh, here and online. Yeah, last year was here in person. Emma wrote a review of the video I made last year. That I only recently discovered it when a colleague in Warsaw drew my attention to it, and it's really got under my skin in a really good way. And so I've blogged about it. When I go through the slides in a bit, I will show where you can see where I've blogged about it, and that will include. Thank you, Emma. That will include a link to Emma's piece in the Medium site. And one of the things that Emma talks about is how when she came to the final sort of more formal bit of the day last year, she came unexpectedly to connect with Hercules. And today, one of the things I'm going to do to begin with is give a quick kind of, you know, rehearsal and introduction of what the sort of Hercules phase in my project is all about. And then what I'm going to do is introduce the planned next phase on a different mythological figure, a figure who's very much of the moment, I would say, right? And that's something I very much want to try to harness, namely Medusa. Okay, now, like last time, there is an interactive aspect, completely opt-in. You know, one of it is going to be colouring, right? And absolutely go for it. Start colouring anytime. Use whatever colours you feel comfortable with. Go for bright ones. Go for muted ones. Go for whatever colours, you know, have come your way. Swap them. Whatever you want to do. Right. So that's so one key thing I say is just get going. Do that. I won't let you leave the room without taking a picture of what you've coloured in, unless you say don't, right? And maybe even if you cut round it, a picture of you wearing your mask, right? Online people, there are screenshots, there are things we can do. I've got Huda here who's really good at that kind of thing and can maybe, yes. So let's try to make that happen, because over the years, I've given various talks on like the Hercules side of what I'm doing, and I've got like so involved in the moment that I haven't done enough of like taking photographs. And then when I was putting together the book, or I take photographs, but I wouldn't be quite sure like whose artwork I was taking photographs of. And so when it came to doing things like getting people's permission to use that artwork, I couldn't get it because I wasn't quite sure who'd done it. So at the start of this, I'm trying to be more proactive. It's also I found like very helpful to get you know, email addresses, contact details of people who've been to sessions, so we can like follow up on things. So what I've actually done, now I'm currently trying to move house, so I've packed away a lot of my props, and I've packed away my guest book, right? So I've grabbed a little notebook, right, and I'm going to circulate it around the, you know, in real life room. And I wonder if like perhaps on a page in the notebook, people in the room can just like write down who they are, what their name is, email address, and maybe if you want to say something like, what, if anything, Medusa means to you. Yeah, you can do a little drawing for you, or anything, right? So I'll just send that round, right? So you know, completely optional, but you know, name, email address, what Medusa means to you. And those of you who are online, it's even easier if you want to just put in the chat who you are, email address if you feel like sharing that, or just let me have it directly. And what if anything Medusa means to you, okay? If anything, right? And if it's nothing, that's fine to say. So that's it's okay. So we're already doing interactive activities. Now I'm now gonna propose another interactive activity, right? And it's one that I'm having to be really feel really brave to suggest, and here's why. It's going to be right. It's going to be right. Make a noise, right? I'll explain why. Don't do it yet. Well, you can. Anybody can do whatever they want, right? And this is okay. This is right. This is why. Okay. One reason is this, right? This is me trying to deal with one of the things that I found really difficult last year when I was giving the formal part of the session, in that I was in the moment and trying to share my autism and Herculean research, and I didn't have loads written down because I like everything to be of the moment. It means there's lots of etc., but it means it's it's me sharing myself in the moment. And there was this really loud generator. Right. All right. It was this Medusan scream the whole time, and I was absolutely exhausted afterwards because I was competing with this, and it wasn't even consistent. That combined with a clock that was telling the wrong time, as Graham just reminded me, that was it made life a bit surreal. And I then started engaging with what the clock said, and then I couldn't cope with real life after. It's really weird. It was great, but it was all a bit, challenging. And I was just so happy that Emma in the Medium piece mentioned that I was having to compete with this really loud sound, and kind of did okay. So thank you. That really helped. And it helped me think, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go for it today. So one thing is to take revenge on this. It's very quiet here. It's beautifully quiet here. It's eerily quiet in this room, apart from me right now. Sometimes I find sounds hard to sort of filter out. Yeah, okay. So here's me taking control. There's another reason as well, right? So a few years ago, when I was, very much sort of building up the Hercules side of things. I think it was in about 2017 or 2018. I got some funding from the Being Human Festival to help organise some sessions out of Roehampton for and with and connected with autistic young people. And one of the things I helped organise was a theatre production, a very focused theatre production run by the theatre director Kelly Hunter and her team of actors, with a group of young primary school age autistic children who I'd already met because I'd gone into their school and done a Herculean session with them a few months earlier. And it was in this theatre in the southwest London area, and it was absolutely amazing the way in which the actors got the young people, all between the ages of about 8 and 11, to engage with mythology, engage with their own way of movement, was absolutely incredible. And one of the things she got the kids to do early on, right, to sort of free them up, was just to shout. And I thought, surely those guys are going to find that hard to do, but they really embraced it, and everything was a bit different after that. And then in the afternoon, there was a workshop that Kelly Hunter did with grown-ups, including me, where she talked about her practice, and the people there were people who had some kind of interest. Very often, in some cases it was professionally, in some cases it was as parents with autism. Nobody shared their being neurodivergent or autistic themselves. I think some people probably were. Most were there very much to support, as they saw it, autistic young relatives. And so what she did, she went around the room saying, right, she was going to do with us what she does with the young people and what I'd actually seen working that morning. Okay, she went around the room, and everybody had to like shout, right? I'm not going to do this now, exactly like this. Right? I'm not going to do this, right? And I was like, not going to happen, right? I don't like letting go like that. It's probably very therapeutic, but I'm not going to let go. So I went around the room, and everyone went there, you know, like that, right? And I said, I can't, right? And then it passed, and that was absolutely fine. And I was kind of proud of myself that I didn't just like do it in a half-hearted way, but actually said no. I was quite proud of myself, but I was also thinking, like, why did I say no? But I could see that for everyone else, it was a kind of like icebreaker, and it did help. So I obviously do not like losing control like that. But I get it, and I could say, so it's absolutely fine if nobody wants to do that. So what I'm going to say is just for a moment, right? Because it obviously worked when Kelly Hunter did it, and people obviously did get something out of doing it. Can we just have a moment where we make some kind of sound? Now, it doesn't have to be a shout, right? Although this is something I'm considering working with. I mean, it's Medusa, right? I'm working with Medusa, and one of the things Medusa is all about is silence and yet sound, and a different kind of doing sound, right? So I need to embrace this anyway. So it can be, you can shout, you can clap, you can just do a silent scream, something like that, or you can wave or anything, right? Right. So you don't have to do it. How about if I count down from 3, and then we just do something, right? Even if it's whatever. Okay. All right. Right, collectively, right? Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Wah! See, I did it. See, I can do it with you. I can do it. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, and thank you, online people. And this does link with something I want to turn into some kind of activity. And if I hadn't, I do like bringing props along, and if I hadn't have packed it all away because of like moving house, I would have brought along my travel recorder from primary school, right? Because when my mum, cleared out her attic and gave me various things, including my travel recorder that she had kept. That I wasn't like very musical. I did love it, but I wasn't very musical. And I got into like the primary school like orchestra because I was the only person who had a treble recorder. And I love my treble recorder, and I love the fact I had to like transpose everything because it's it's fourth or whatever lower than descant recorder. Did my head in, and I absolutely loved it. But I'm sure I would make a Gorgon-like sound when I played that recorder, right? I wasn't very delicate. My mouth would be right over the mouthpiece, right? Gorgons, aulos, right? Flute type, bagpipe type instruments. That's something I want to do something with. As part of the activities. And one reason I'm sharing this is like I thought I don't know what to do with this, right? Because there wasn't much like overt classics when I was growing up. As I told Laron, when last time I saw her when I was growing up in South Wales, in Cardiff no less. I mean, classics was obviously all around me in ways I didn't know, and yet was engaging with in some way. But one of the things I realised when I opened up my my treble recorder it was called Aulos. It's called Aulos. I literally have and had as a child a Gorgon sounding Aulos, and I'd love to have brought it, but I've put it in some box somewhere, okay, from when I moved house. And so, but it's something. I want to do something with, so there will be a sound element here. And when I started getting interested in autism and classical myth, oh gosh, it's a while ago now, 2008. It all started for me. I decided to focus on particular mythological figures, not least because I'm fitting in with Graham's introduction. That's one of the things I do, right? So I work on various different things. There's various strands to my research, but one of the things that just link them all together is an interest in particular mythological and religious figures, very much Athena, and the various figures around Athena. There's been a lot of Hercules already, and definitely a lot of Medusa from my very first ever publication, which was also very much about Gorgons and the sound they make. Is it noise? Is it music? What is the difference there? And I brought along, because I love sort of show and tell things, the most recent book in the Gods and Heroes series that I've been editing for a while now. It's on Antigone, and I've just shown it here just to say, you know, this is like what I do. I mean, I do focus on particular religious and mythological figures, but I've also brought it along because it's my gift to Leicester, right? So I'll just hand that over. Yeah, I get champagne, you get a book. Do what you want with that, actually. Yes.
We'll put it on in the. We'll get you to sign it, and then we'll put it in the postgraduate room. I think.
I'd be honoured to do that. I'll try to think of something like witty and Greek or other to write as well. Okay. Welsh, yeah, Welsh, yeah. Welsh would be like brilliant. And so back when I was starting to sort of find my way into this topic, and I just remember, like, I started blogging on it because I didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't know it would go anywhere, but I thought I'm going to just like start getting things down, right? Immediate dissemination, see where it goes. I just remember Catherine Tempest, who's here in the room, was one of like the very first people who ever followed my blog, and probably still does follow it. So that just like really just sort of blew me away. So we obviously do go back years, and so I was thinking about particular figures. In the end, when I made the Herculean decision to go with Hercules, I stuck with that. But Medusa, also Perseus and Athena, were also very, very strong contenders in those early days. And one of the things I blogged about early on, in connection with the University of Reading, your museum's Aulos, that they are very rightly very proud of, was doing something linked with that particular object. And then that's something I moved on slightly last year. Again in September, same month when I came here, when I did a session in the Your Museum with some neurodivergent children, and very much focusing on museum objects, and the Aulos was one we very much talked about. So make sound together is something, sound, noise, music, is something that is going to be very much linked with what I'm going to go on to do, and that I'm really excited to be on the verge of doing. So I'm interested then in my research in mythological figures. I'm also, as Graham said, interested in sexualized violence and also other forms of violence in mythology and other aspects of culture. And I'm very interested also in how both of these can very much resonate today. And these strands very much come together in the experiential applications that I've been making of classical myth. So as I said, the first phase was a Herculean one, and what I was particularly focusing on there, right? Okay, so on one level it's very big. Okay, it's classical mythology. Then it's Hercules, which is also very big, but more focused. In a way that I think is like really appropriate to thinking and sharing an autistic way of doing things. It's all about big picture, right? And loving, trying to, or loving or hating, or just trying to find ways to engage with massive things, but also zooming in, right? So it's Hercules, also which is a focus, but also still quite big. To one particular episode in the mythological life of Hercules, when he's at a crossroads, right? It's Hercules at a crossroads, where in a strange place, he has an encounter with two, well, what are they? Personifications, women, goddesses. What are they called? Hard work and pleasure. And at this crossroads, he's faced with a choice he needs to make in life. So the focus then is this particular episode, and there's an even one which can resonate with what it can be like as an autistic person to have to make choices. Right, choice making can be hard for anyone, but when you're autistic, it can be harder still to make any decision. Not necessarily, not for everybody, but it can be. And that's one of the things I'm exploring. So it's choice of Hercules, but even more specifically than that, the focus is on a particular artifact, right? So this is something I'm sort of potentially seeking in relation to Medusa as well. Lots of other things come in, right? There's a whole world that comes in, but it's also the world as it's represented via a particular artifact. The focus is very much a particular representation of Hercules between the two women needing to make a decision, or at least being tasked with making a decision. Does he actually make a decision? Right, is one of the things I do think about in the book and in the lessons that are presented in the book. Sorry, hang on, I lost my. Oh yeah, the focus is a particular representation, which is an 18th century chimney piece panel that is very much like trying, right? It's the 18th century doing antiquity. So it's a very, very white, very non-coloured in, right? Very non-colourful thing that obviously then subversively get everyone to colour. Which is at the University of Roehampton, in one of the University of Roehampton's showpiece Georgian buildings. So it's very, very specific. So it's a whole world, but very much coming out of a particular artifact. And I'm very much wondering whether to go for something, the very sort of like detailed focus like that in relation to Medusa. So we shall see. So yeah, so I love the Crossroads image. It works on so many levels for me. So I'm at a crossroads in between these two figures. I always feel like I'm at a crossroads between various different disciplines. I do my disciplinary home is classics. Is that already between classics and ancient history? Classics and classical studies, or classical civilization, I guess. I do so much that's drawing on such areas as psychology, neurodivergent studies, autism studies, disability studies, gender studies, etc., etc. So I always feel like I'm seeking to connect and cross various disciplines and think about what it means to be doing that, and what therefore a discipline is in the first place. So the first sort of Herculean phase is very much about things like choice making. It's about emotions, right, and the kind of emotions that you need to try to deal with when, for example, you arrive somewhere new. It's also about things like theory of mind and changing perspectives. So most of the lessons do focus on Hercules, but I shift the focus as well to each of the two women, and think about for example, what it means for these two women to be encountering this intruder into their space. What are they feeling? And one thing I should say is that in one of the early workshops I did, it was in a cafe in Warsaw that's staffed by autistic people. Which is a wonderful autistic focused space that I love and haven't been to for years, thanks to things like COVID, and very much miss and very much want to take Medusa to as quickly as I can. When I was running a session there a few years ago now, 2018 maybe, 2017, 2018. I gave there was a handout showing the choice of Hercules. And I also had things like post-it notes, glue, scissors. And one of the things I noticed is that one of the participants had cut out Hercules. And I'd encourage people to say, focus on something, because I stressed that there were going to be lessons in the book that were going to focus on particular figures and particular aspects of the scene, etc. And so one of the participants had cut out Hercules. And I assumed it was so that he could focus on Hercules, the man in the middle, the famous mythological figure, etc. What he was actually doing was cutting out Hercules to throw Hercules away. He didn't want Hercules there. he wanted the two women to interact. And that really blew me away. And then I realised the 19th century had got there first in a way. There's a in the collection of, what would it be, coins and medals at the British Museum. There's the artist Hogarth's perpetual pass to Vauxhall Gardens, right? Vauxhall Gardens, pleasure garden, right? A place where, well, you know, hard work and pleasure come together, right? The two women are often seen as virtue and vice, right? So 18th century and 19th century pleasure gardens, a place where these two things that were so significant to the 18th century come together, right? Pleasure and, you know, where, yeah, virtue and vice, pleasure and hard work, whatever, or you set aside hard work for the pleasure garden. Okay, but his perpetual past, right, is it's very much, you've got virtue and vice, or pleasure and virtue, however you're gonna, virtue and pleasure, I guess, virtue and pleasure. Yeah, there's no man in the middle, they're holding hands, right? It's there, right? And the fact that gave a connection to Vauxhall Gardens and to William Hogarth, and I've been very much like wondering about something in the National Gallery that does something with marriage a la mode, because that's so detail rich, including in a interesting stare Medusa way, right? So anyway, things all keep coming together. And one thing I should say is that every time I've done something Hercules related and choice of Hercules related, people have had their own relationship with the material, and I certainly don't feel like it was the end of things with Hercules. So I'm moving on to a new challenge, but I'm not leaving Hercules to one side, because I haven't exhausted everything yet, I think, as well. And so, everything to date has been very Hercules focused. And so what I'm gonna do just quite briefly, because I've sort of got an eye on the time. Are we okay? We're all right at the
room was booked till 5.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. So I don't propose to go on till 5, but I just wanted to check you didn't have to be out by 4, just to be on the...
I put the key here.
See, the such is good, and the food was good. Yes, this is wonderful. I didn't even need to get and stand up. This is brilliant. So I've got, thank you, if I can do... Oh, it works, yeah, oh, yeah, okay. So what I've got here, just a few slides, just to give me a few prompts to work through, and what you've got here are also various images from the book, and if you have a PDF version of this, and if anyone here doesn't have it, that's easily sendable, because what I've done, I won't bother doing it now, but if I were to click where it says Autism and Classical Myth blog here, that would take you hopefully to my blog, right, where I've been disseminating and sharing and splurging for some years now around autism and classical myths, and it's currently the last but one posting that has me giving my response to reading Emma Astra's review of the sessions here last year. So that's something I love when people share with me what they think of the blog and that kind of thing. So that would be, if anyone's got any thoughts, absolutely delighted. Yeah, and the links. So when I put these slides together just a few days, I was able to put in the link to the book. And now, when you go there, the link to the open access version is there as well. So that's great. So if I can move to the next one. Right now, so what you've got here on this next slide is the artifact I was talking about. It's the one that's at Roehampton University in an 18th century neoclassical villa. It's 18th century, but it's 18th century trying to look very ancient, trying to make it look as though it was one of the artifacts that the owner of the house had brought back from his grand tour, right? And yet it is 18th century. And one of the things that just like so intrigues me is that the choice of Hercules by the 18th century was something that very much resonated with a range of people. Not least in Britain, where it became British, or maybe more specifically English, I don't know, or British. It became seen very much as a British national myth, very much resonating with the 18th and then 19th century as it went on, concerned to try to find the right balance between the competing demands of hard work and pleasure, and so it's very 18th century, very much resonating with the 18th century, trying to look ancient, and yet there is no surviving, at least, right, ancient representation of this scene that seems so part of our engagement with classical antiquity. Yeah, there are ancient sources, written sources for Hercules at the Crossroads, but it's in the Renaissance. It's in the Renaissance, and then moving on to a whole other level in the 18th and then 19th centuries, that the choice of Hercules at the Crossroads, becomes a key feature in visual art, and that's another thing that engages. It just invites us to think on so many levels about what antiquity is, what the 18th century is, and what we're looking at here. And so now in the book, there are lots of things that can be used as handouts, including one of the drawings. Right, so what I was able to do was to get the artist Steve Simons, who some people might know from the Panoply project, where together with the ancient historian Sonia Nevin, Steve animates ancient vases. Right, and one of the things there's a link to, hopefully I haven't, is an animation that Steve has created of Hercules choosing. Right, okay. And he's also done a series of line drawings of the scene as a whole, and also of various constituent features. It's an extremely detailed, rich scene, and it invites people to look at the scene as a whole, and also focus on particular details. You might be able to see, for example, a helmet with a snake on it. There's lush vegetation on the pleasure side of things. The hard work or virtue side of the scene is much more sparse and rocky. When people have done colouring in activities of the scene as a whole, they've done all sorts of things. Some people have coloured in particular details. Sometimes it's the figures. Sometimes they've drawn around them. Sometimes they've created a unity to the scene by doing things like as one participant made a pool, created a pool at the bottom around the rocks on which the feet of the various figures here are depicted. And there's so many ways in which people have taken ownership. One time at a workshop, completely independently, two people animalised the scene. And one of the participants, who was doing a PhD that was very much at the intersection of animal studies and post-humanism and classics, was to bring the Nemean lion back to life. So I don't know if you can see, but resting on Hercules' club, there's the head of the Nemean lion, and you can see the lion's skin as well. She gave the lion back life. The club became one of the legs. She created other legs, and it was, well, it's in the book. It's in the book with her permission. So people have done all sorts of innovative things, and so colouring in is something that seems to work. And what I found when I've been doing activities, for example, with young people, is that it's when they're colouring in that they start talking, they start sharing, they start opening up about what they're doing, what they're feeling. So on various levels, it works, and there are many ways. There are many levels on which it works. Oh yeah, and also thinking the book wasn't out yet, I thought, you know, I would just share a few screenshots of some of the pages. It is like other books in the Our Mythical Childhood series. It is beautifully produced, and I'm really excited and nervous about, you know, the package that's going to come in the next few days that has my actual copies. And so here's a sense of how I arrange things. So as well as there being line drawings by Steve Simons of various aspects of the choice of Hercules, there's also a series of drawings of other aspects of Hercules, including Hercules here as a baby with two serpents. So there's a link here between the perhaps the serpent on the helmet, and then the serpent that he's strangling here in his cot to save his brother, because he likes killing serpents, right? Because serpents are linked with immortality, and there's always something serpentine linked with Hercules as well. Anyway, here's just an example of one of the figures in the book, and also what you can maybe see in the list of contents here. Is how each of the lessons is both about some aspect of Hercules. It's also about some aspect of what, you know, it can be potentially like to be autistic. The lessons can be done as a series. They can be done as one-offs, and I've designed it so that every one can be done as a one-off. So, like, say teachers want to, you know, run a session on making decisions, for example. You know, you could focus on lesson 8, for example. If you want to focus on dealing with emotions, well, emotions keep coming up throughout the whole book, but lesson 3 has a particular emotions focus, for instance, right? And there's stuff on making choices. There's also things on causality, you know, thinking about how the present can turn into the future, which can be challenging when you're autistic. Being in the moment can be a wonderful thing, but it can also lead to various challenges. So that's some, and there was one of the things I wanted to share. Yeah, no, I will come to that. I will come to that soon. Something I want to share, right? Because now, yes, from Hercules to Medusa. I'm just going to briefly share some things about, you know, why I'm moving to Medusa. One reason is that, as in the case of Hercules, you know, Medusa is all around us. And what I decided to do with Hercules was go for a figure that a lot of people, not everybody obviously, but a lot of people have heard of, thanks in partly to a key moment of the 90s, which was Disney, right? The Disney film. And people obviously, you know, still very much connect with that, and a lot of people, you know, come to classics without perhaps realizing it's classics by watching that film. But what I went for was an everyman, an every person figure, and every woman figure potentially, namely Hercules, in that he does he isn't always male. So a figure who could just speak potentially to so many different types of gendered experiences, quite apart from anything else. But what I also wanted to do was go for an episode in the myth of Hercules that is not particularly well known. It was in the 18th century, this choice he makes, but it's not any longer. So I wanted to go for something so that, yeah, if people already know Hercules, have an interest in Hercules, have an intense interest in Hercules even, yeah, that's there for them. But if they know nothing, other people about this particular story, right, the chances are most other people won't know either. So everybody can potentially be on the same page. And when you're autistic, you can feel on the outside of things, and you can feel like, you know, you're being sort of kept away from knowledge that other people just have. But I thought I would go for an episode that most people tend not to know, so people can generally be come into for the first time, obviously with exceptions. So a challenge might be to try to find something comparable in relation to Medusa. So there's various reasons I've gone for Medusa, some of which I've shared already. You know, things like, you know, she exists between, she's silenced, and yet there's a lot of noise connected with Medusa, including the noise of the serpents. Right, and each serpent is alive. The serpents the serpents that make up her hair. So she crosses and connects so many different things between silence and noise, between beauty and ugliness, for instance. She's in both. She transcends them. Also between being human and being what? Being a monster. What does that mean? I've been doing a lot of thinking around monster studies and what it means to be the monster, for example. And also Medusa is at the intersection of various disciplines, and you know I've just given one example here. The image left and right, the image there, rather than just like confuse everyone by trying to work out confuse me and everyone by trying to work out what's left and right, particularly when I'm looking at something here and I'm trying to. Yeah, you get it. I can't anyway. Yeah. One of the image here is it's called Medusa at the interface between science and art, and it's a painting that was produced for a book that I am one of the authors of a chapter in. I was so proud to be in this book. So it's this big, thick book. But even if I hadn't packed it away, I wouldn't have brought it up here because it's so big and heavy. It's a book called The Cnidaria. So it's about jellies, I should say, jellyfish, who are including who are Medusae, right? And they reached out to me and various other classicists to say, you know, would we be interested in doing some stuff relating to Medusa classical mythology and reception of Medusa for this book, and that was something that came out in 2016. So itself came out several years ago, and so I presented as something that's, you know, very much sort of thinking across disciplines, thinking beyond, you know, the two cultures of arts and sciences, for instance. But it's also to, you know, sort of present to you, you know, some aspects of, you know, my various, you know, encounters in my scholarship, my practice with Medusa over the years. Yeah, and like the first paper I ever wrote was on it was for a volume of Boeotia Antiqua in 1995. And it was on Athena in Boeotia. Okay, I was doing my PhD on Athena, but there was a lot on Athena and Medusa and the creation of the aulos to imitate, recreate the sound of one of Medusa's sisters, who's been beheaded thanks to Athena's intervention. And you know, rereading that, I was just realising how much that paper was really all about Medusa, though I didn't see it at the time. So, you know, everything has been leading in my academic career towards Medusa, and, you know, here I am. Okay, so yeah, I'm saying it's about the intersections between arts and sciences, but it's really about me and where I am. And also, I brought, you know, I actually brought along the physical thing here that I'm actually showing on the slide, because I didn't pack this away because it's nice and small, so I could keep it. So it's a handout from one of the Our Mythical Workshops from the Gods and Heroes series from a few years ago, and I love the way the artwork that was created for that event was very much using Medusa in order to think about, again, it's intersections. It's about how the present meets the past. So there's a lot that I can do. There's a lot that I can do with Medusa. So I'm thinking about, you know, crossing different disciplines. I'm thinking about then versus now. I'm thinking about monstrosity versus what being human. And what I'm very much seeking to do is find ways to facilitate dialogue between what can be seen as two distinct ways of being, autistic and non-autistic, maybe also neurodivergent as against neurotypical. Very often, being autistic is conceptualized as being in a particular world, and when you're autistic, it can be that you're in an autistic world, but always trying to like make sense of this other world, this world that is very much like created for and by and perpetuated by non-autistic people. And as a result, what can happen is that the two different worlds, the two different ways of being, can fail to understand one another. One result is that very often neurotypical people will try to find ways to enable neurodivergent people to fit in, right? And it's often very well-meaning. It's often, coming from a lot of love, but it can foster a sense that you're missing something. You've got to like change. You've got to keep changing, and that can be just so horribly hard. So where I'm coming from is that it should be more about trying to seek mutual understanding and empathy, so that neurodivergent people don't feel a need to fit a world that's dominated by people that they want to engage with but don't understand. So it's one of the things I'll just share very briefly is that I'm very inspired in what I do by the work of Damien Milton, who's an autistic academic based at the University of Kent at their Tizard Centre, who was the initiator of double empathy theory, right? Which I think he first published on in 2012. Right, so it's been around a decade and a bit now, which is very much about how you've got these two different ways of being, often conceived as radically different, often not understanding one another, even though people on both sides might desperately want to do that. And so one of the things my research and practice is seeking to do is to help facilitate a dialogue, right? So that people, with two distinct ways of being, can find ways to connect. And Medusa is someone who's always like in between worlds, who's always in both, but outside them, always crossing the worlds. Seems to me particularly apposite here. And one of the things that autistic people so often do is to mask. Right, so I thought, why not embrace that in a literal sense and actually have a Medusa mask? This right now, right, the thing that's the handout that various people are colouring in, it's something that I sourced from the internet, and it's fine to do it as long as you say where it's from. So that's why I kept that on the handout. What I'm hoping to do ultimately is create my own handouts that people can use, either done myself or hopefully done in collaboration with artists such as Steve Simons. But we're very much at the early stages here. What I'm going to end with the words of Harry Rao. Now, so Harry is an autistic student who I had the honour of teaching at Roehampton, He's now started a master's degree at UCL and has plans to do a PhD after that. So he's in middle, very much sort of interesting middle phase of his academic journey right now in terms of degrees that he's doing. One of the things that we had a really interesting connection about while I was teaching him was that we both had an interest in Hercules. And he wrote a piece for the Acclaim network that I co-founded a few years ago. Acclaim is for anybody who is interested in autism and mythology and where they connect. It stands for Autism Connecting Classically, CLA, right? Classically inspired mythology. That's what it stands for. So I said to Harry, while he was doing his degree, and when he was doing some work experience with the Our Mythical Childhood project, how about writing a blog post on Hercules and autism? Because what he shared with me is that as a child, it was discovering the Disney Hercules that changed his life, right? And he's carried it with him as an autistic person ever since. And so he wrote an amazing piece for the blog, for the Acclaim Network blog on Hercules. And then more recently, over the summer, he's done one on Medusa, right? And it's going to be published. It's going to be published very soon. It's all written. It's all illustrated. We're just sorting out the bibliography. That's where we're at, right? It'll very soon be good to know. But what I've done here, with his permission, is to share some of the things that he has said. So I'm just going to end with Harry's perspective on Medusa. So I've just taken various selections from his piece. What is Medusa? He says, you see a head with snakes, a petrifying gaze, right? Maybe you did in your mask as well. But when you look beneath the mask and facade of horror, there is the same unified humanity that binds all people, right? The sense of fear. Very often I'd say that a key emotion that is linked with being autistic is fear. Always fear, panic, like feeling like you're always having a continual panic attack. Anyway, fear, vulnerability, and emotional insecurity. For people with autism, the idea the facade is sometimes unconsciously erected as a way of hiding emotions that a person cannot express. This enables the outside world only to envision a certain aspect of an autistic individual's the outside world only to envision a certain aspect of an autistic individual's psychological disposition, right? So these are just a few fragments from Harry's piece. But reading what Harry said is just like further reinforced me in my thinking that Medusa is the way forward for me. What Harry is actually doing right now, in collaboration with another former Roehampton student, is starting some work on less well-known mythological figures. Right, that's the direction they're going in. So what I'm doing right now is embracing well-known ones, but trying to find less well-known aspects to, give everybody a connection point, and enable people to think about what it means for there to be Medusas, all around us, Versace image, etc., etc. And on so much public architecture, whereas what they're doing is focusing on less well-known figures, and that's something that is very much just beginning to get off the ground, and that I'm very excited about. It's very excited about. Okay, so that's so having sort of ended here with Harry's words. I want to see your masks. That's what I want to do, and I have scissors. So if people want to cut them out, is it okay to have scissors in?
I'm going to keep mine, but I'm happy to hold it up in front of my face.
Yeah. So if anybody, well, I mean, we could take some photos. Oh my God, that's amazing. Sorry, people in the room. Yeah, we could. Can we make sure we take photos of people with their masks before we go? It doesn't have to be like now while we're, so this is, oh my God, the colours people have used. Sorry, the colours people have used. Like, could I show one, here, for example? Yeah, there we go. To people online. I'm sorry, I'm holding it to the picture rather than that's something else to do. Yeah, for example. Yeah, and I think the colours that are used. Oh, that's amazing. I love what you've done with the snake colours. That's really brilliant. Yeah. Oh my God, Tony King says he's not artistic. Look at you. It seems you are. That's amazing. That's amazing. So can I see again? Oh my God, lots of blue. There's lots of blues, isn't it? Lots of blues and greens. And I know some of you have a year long. You can do anything you want. A little bit, none. Take it away with you. Do it later. On the condition that you send me a photo later. Right, let me just say that. This is yeah, okay. This is great. Honestly, you get to keep this if you want it, but only if there's a photograph first. But but it can be hiding behind it. So Graham, are you able to sort that?
I just wondering if we can turn the lights up, see them better. But this is an old room, brutalist style building. Officially, that's the name of the architectural style.
And here's mine so far. It's like yeah. Mine is just this. What is this? There's no colour apart from the black and white. Oh, that's nice. It's really nice soft light.
A bit more light.
Yeah. So that's that's everything I want to say. And so I think I probably did actually talk about an hour because I think we started late. I thought it was going to be about like 1:45. I can't believe we talked for so long, but that's.
I don't propose to do a formal conclusion to the event. I mean, it's been an incredible tour, and actually
tour of my head.
You're very skillful in building up and building up and building up. And the last 20 minutes to me was actually very moving because it comes out what the real purpose and value of what you're doing is, and as we've all learned to say truthfully that myth has power beyond anything we used to realise. I think Tolkien realised it, but others before him, and he did it better than anyone before him, I think, except maybe Shakespeare or Homer, etc. But you're doing exactly what you said. You're bringing things out that have never been explored in certain aspects of well-known myths. And you're right. There's a whole, dare I say, in Amy's presence, constellation of less well-known myths, which we want to hear more about. Shall we ask people for responses, and we can keep recording or edit it out later, or whatever people want to do?
You know what? Can I begin by saying that you said constellation, and I meant to say this, and I was thinking of you at the time. You know how there are various ways of thinking about autism. People, you must have heard on the spectrum. Someone's on the spectrum, and I always felt uncomfortable with that. And then somebody autistic nailed it beautifully. And when I was putting together the book, I'd be able to say exactly who they were, but I can't remember the name right now. But it's when it's the spectrum image, it's sort of like if you lined up every autistic person in the world, everybody would have one place in it. Like, what does that mean? And also it just anyway. So I was never sure about spectrum, although I'm very aware that there are some autistic people who find it a really good image, and that's like totally fine. But what I've really embraced is autism constellation. Yes, yeah. And so what? Because it's so because initially the spectrum thing was trying to be sort of three-dimensional, but constellation, and that's one reason why in some of the artwork, if I can go back, to let me see if I can. Yes, it still works good. That's one of the reasons why so much of the book is. Well, it's constellation-y, right? Right, where Hercules fits in with constellations, but also to help convey this key sort of model or image or metaphor for autism that I was trying to embrace in the book. Helped by the fact that it's the Milky Way, and thanks to Hercules, we have the Milky Way. There are a number of stories around the world of why Milky Way is, but one is that it's Hercules, and one of the various encounters he has with Hera, in whose glory he is anyway. His name literally means the glory of Hera. it's when the Milky Way is created after he bites her nipple when she's breastfeeding him so hard that the milk spurts everywhere, right? And it's the Milky Way. So I've been thinking about you and your research. So, but
Hercules' most famous asterism myth is that his foot's on the head of the snake because it was the best thing he did. So he was put forever in the sky with the snake.
yes.
I think you could run that.
Yes, I'm going to run with that. And do you know what? I'm just something. I'm glad I made sure I had a pen to hand, so I'm going to write that down because like future me might forget that. Yeah, I'm terrible like discussion after a paper. Like all these interesting things are said, and I then forget to remember them
Well,
because
now we can preserve them.
I know it's cool.
We can edit them out afterwards, but still do a transcript or whatever you wish.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one other thing that I found very moving about halfway through. You were talking about Hercules at the crossroads, and one of the aspects of that, though you brought out others very importantly, is making a choice.
Yeah.
And how making a choice is difficult for some neurodivergent people. And it suddenly came to me that it raises the question, what is choice? And I happened to be directed by a circuitous route this morning to an interview with Peter Hitchens, a very kind of provocative journalist of great experience. And he admits that his views are rather forthright. And he said he's always thought that there's no such thing as addiction, because there's always a moment of choice. And I thought, well, I can see the sort of sense in that, but that just, to me, that doesn't read like real life, what he says. Because, it raises the question to which you might give different answers about when you make a choice, when is it made? This is a deep philosophical point. Is it made as you make it, and therefore you sort of don't know what it's going to be until you're doing it? Or are there circumstances and factors in your decision making, if that's what it is, that produce that choice? I mean, I think, as far as I know, never suffered from an addiction, but I imagine that people who have feel that there's no choice. They mean to do differently, and then they've done the thing they didn't mean to do. But that's tremendously powerful area of thought, it seems to me, that deserves discussion. And maybe the Greeks knew something by focusing on Hercules at the crossroads.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. At least thinking of what is choice in the first place.
Yeah. Philosophers struggle to define when is a choice made. At what moment is it made? And the materialist determinists who say, well, it was always going to be that way. But that's not how it feels when you make a choice. But when you make a choice, you don't actually, you can't be sure whether you were always going to make that choice. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't.
Yeah. So think about how we make choices, and what it means to make big decisions in life as against small things. Because when you're autistic, it's like that big and small. It doesn't necessarily work. Deciding like what to have for breakfast is such a big thing.
It is, yeah.
For example,
and not just autistic people, but ADHD. I happen to know ADHD people who likewise find it very, very difficult to get started on something. Yeah. Very difficult when it comes to a fork in the road. What do you do?
Yeah. The book actually begins with Yogi Berra, who had a really interesting sideways way of thinking that to me is very Heraclitean. Okay, one of his is when you come to a fork in the road, take it.
Very good. So choices, is it closing down or options as well? Making a choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you make choices.
Yeah. So it can be very empowering. I find it so hard. That means when I do make a decision, which can be as like what to have for breakfast, because I've had to work so hard to get to the point of making that choice. I get a wonderful adrenaline flow and feel so good. And so that can be it can be a seemingly big thing. It can be a seemingly small thing.
Did your reference to Heraclitus spring out of T.S. Eliot by any chance? I think it's in The Wasteland, one of the epigraphs he puts at the start. Heraclitus, he puts it in Greek, The way up and the way down are one and the same.
Oh yeah.
That's Heraclitus.
Yeah. I've got the wasteland is just like.
Yeah.
I have an interesting relationship with the wasteland, initially through even more actually. But anyway, and I've done a lot of thinking lately about nothingness.
That's Heraclitus too.
Right. And obviously very on Margate sands, I can connect nothing with nothing. Yeah.
Others may.
Anyway, sorry. Yes. Yeah. What do you do after nothing?
Probably
yes.
draw to a close in a few minutes' time if we want to have a coffee break. Before, for those attending the Buchan lecture, which starts at 5:30, if you may wish to have an interlude, a café pause, as they say in Germany. Other thoughts?
Oh, there's some comments here. Hang on.
Oh yes, from the chat, please.
Oh yes. Yes, yeah. This is Katarzyna Murski. Oh wow! Oh my God, it's the book.
A copy of the book.
Oh my God! Yes, it's the book. Yeah, okay, so this is my dear colleague Katarzyna Marciniak, who's the overall principal investigator and leader of the Armed Ethical Childhood Project, and yeah, she's holding up the actual book. Yeah. Oh my God, she's opening the book.
Good it is trying to share.
Yes, yeah, we might be able to share the. Yeah.
Well, there's mine.
Oh, yeah, I think.
Matthew Paris's 1200s map of England with a Leicestershire flag.
And soon everyone.
Legally Chester.
Just a second.
Yeah, sure. It's gone big here.
The system seems laggy in this room, I must say. You move the keyboard and the slide takes several seconds to appear. But we can see Katarzyna in the laptop large.
Or we could turn the laptop around. It's not going to work.
Possibly press a button called laptop on the console. Is that going to work? No.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the connection is between the laptop and the.
Yeah. We could just turn the. Oh, that's not. We could turn this round. So here, yeah. Now it gets surreal. I'm like, Katarzyna, you're looking at yourself now. It's very Gorgon-like. Yeah.
Thank you. It's just a small surprise for Susan. So the book is on its way, so it should arrive very soon. So thank you very much for your wonderful lecture, and thank you all for such a kind reception and interest in this wonderful publication. So I just wanted to share with you this is great joy and wonderful friend and colleague Susan. Thank you very much.
Before we close, can I ask any of the students, and undergraduates especially, all of whom I know, whether they have anything to say about myth in ancient history? Myth doesn't form part of my Greek states module, but maybe it should.
Your mic. I forgot the word
gender aspect into that 2 weeks
because
ago.
I think your mic is off.
Has myth anything to tell us about ancient history, as opposed to current classics in general?
I mean, we know that, like, especially with the Greeks and Romans, there were a lot of, especially with Hercules, like a lot of these senior statesmen, like Alexander. He pushed the whole image of him being Hercules. Like, that was kind of like this whole thing, along with conquering like everything he saw. But there's obviously a lot of amount of importance placed on these myths for these ancient peoples.
I think that's right. I mentioned in a seminar last week a paper, I don't know whether others know it, by Greg Anderson a few years ago. I forget the title, but it's got ontologies in it. And there's also a review of a book by Simonton on oligarchy. He objects to the imposition of modern ontologies into Greek life. the idea that religion is separate from politics, is separate from economy. We do it subconsciously, we do it all the time. But Craig Anderson, I don't know whether he's taken it further yet. This was 2015, I think. American Historical Review, I think. You know, that seems to me, well, I mean, our staff cohort, as it's about to be augmented by Catherine at the end of the table in February, you know, and including honorary members as well, seems to me we have a very broad view of ancient history, taken as a team of now about 11 people, and Amy is an ancient history teacher as well. You know, that seems to me to be so much richer than what ancient history was when I started. I'll just leave it there.
I was thinking, I'm sorry I didn't hear your question because we were trying to let Katarzyna speak and it didn't work. But I got the spirit of it, and that was great. But I remember I was thinking about, you know, when I was talking about being at like intersections and I was, you know, classical studies, ancient history. Oh my God, the question you used to get asked at job interviews. Oh, you were a classical historian, ancient historian. Yes. Yeah. Oh.
I think with regards to mythology, I always feel like, especially like with Medusa, I always felt sorry for Medusa because I always felt like she was definitely the victim. And just think about mythology that gives a very personal, like you said, a very personal link. So with Atlas, I always compared myself to Atlas and I felt like the world was on my shoulders at the time. Yeah. But mythology is very personal, it really is.
Yeah.
And
you know, one thing I've found over the years is that it's been interesting for me, like thinking back to things like my first ever publication, because like when it's academic, but I'm also, you know, I'm writing myself. You know, why do we pick the topics we do? Yeah. Even when it's a list of essay questions you get given by a tutor, you know, you've still chosen a particular one, whatever it is. And I've been like really struck about how, you know, how I've been on my academic journey, my relationship with particular topics is changing and to reflect in my own journey. Yeah, so I get you. Yeah, I get you. So yes, so thank you. And there is so much right now on like what it means for Medusa to be a victim and a survivor. What it's like, what it means to think from Medusa's perspective and how far, you know, we can be Medusa and how that can be empowering. And there is so much of that at the moment, and there's so much that's already there in antiquity. My favourite image, it's where it's an ancient vase, and usually how it's described is that it's Perseus chasing gorgons, 3 gorgons. Then I thought, well, or are they chasing him, or are they just always going round and round, right? And I just love that, and you know, the opportunities for the changing perspectives there as well. So yeah.
Are there any more comments in the chat that you'd like to raise and respond to?
They
Or we can read them.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I was just saying thank you to Francis and thank you to Katarzyna. Oh yeah, sorry. Can we? Yeah, how do we scroll? Oh.
I can scroll. This one over here.
Oh, Emma, thank you. Oh, thank you, Emma.
The present meets the past.
We can't, you know, do this over coffee like last time, but you know, there will be other ways.
The present meets the past in everything we do. Ancient historians or archaeologists, I think. Yeah. And of course, there's an old saying from the 18th century that I forget whether the subject is life or history, is a compact between the dead, the living, and the unborn. And that's a perspective that politicians often lose, I think, and some historians often lose, actually. But for me, that's, I mean, maybe the intersection in the present is also where myth intersects with reality.
Yeah, exactly. And the different levels in which it does that, including our own personal ones. Yeah. So So am I getting the sense it's worth keeping going with Medusa? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
A couple more contributions of time for, I think, but we should probably draw to a close presently, as they used to say. If not,
You can move to remember photos before. Yeah.
photograph the remaining faces.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe I could.
You know, so just remains really to.
Oh, yeah, I can do that before. Yeah.
We should thank and congratulate Susan on her
thank you.
immense creativity. I feel this is a long project and it's bearing massive fruit. It's going to go on, you know, becoming more and more important, it seems to me. And what better place to do work on mythology intersecting with things than here in the centre of England at the intersection between north and south.
Yes, perfect. Yes, it's all about Leicester. Yes.
It always was, yes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. All right, I'm going to take some photos of people's masks, or I'll just progress it. Yeah.
Should we stop recording there?
So, thank you.